Gopi Janavar Gopi Janavallabha Bhavatari Yashodanandana Prasajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prasajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prasajana Ranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Punjabi Jaya Radha Punjabi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Continuing reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter Chapter 8, Questions by King Parikshit. Text number, you said 26? All right. Name Sava Parayanti Brahman Anashanad Ami Vivato Chuta Piyusham Tadvakya Abdi Vinishritam Name Sava Parayanti Brahman Anushanadami Vivato Chuta Piyusham Tadvakya Abdi Vinishritam Name Sava Parayanti Brahman Anushanadami Vivato Chuta Piyusham Tadvakya Abdi Vinishritam.
Name Savaparayanti Man Anashanadami Vito Chutapiyusham Sham Vakya Abdi Vinishritam
Brahmananashanarami Pibato Chuta Piyusham Tadvakya Abdi Vinisritam
Nameshava Parayanti Ramananashanatami Bhattachyuta Piyusham Tadvakya Abdi Vinishritam.
Namesava Parayanti Raman Anashanarami Kibato Chuta Piyusham Tadvakya Abdibi Vinishritam.
Nabeshava Parayanti Brahmanana Shanadami Pivato Chuta Piyusham Tadvakya Divinishritam.
Everybody? Word for word translation. Na, never, may, mine, asava, life, parayanti, becomes exhausted. Brahman, O learned Brahmana, anashanat, ami, because of fasting, pibata, because of my drinking, achyuta, of the infallible, piyusham, nectar, tat, your, vakya abdi, ocean of speech, vinishritam, flowing down from. Translation, purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O learned Brahmana, because of my drinking the nectar of the message of the infallible personality of Godhead, which is flowing down from the ocean of your speeches, I do not feel any sort of exhaustion due to my fasting. Purport. The disciplic succession from Brahma, Narada, Vyasa, and Shukadev Goswami is particularly different from others. The disciplic successions from other sages are simply a waste of time, being devoid of Achyuta Katha, or the message of the infallible Lord. The mental speculators can present their theories very nicely by reason and arguments, but such reasons and arguments are not infallible, for they are defeated by better mental speculators. Maharaj Parikshit was not interested in the dry speculation of the flickering mind, but he was interested in the topics of the Lord because factually he felt that by hearing such a nectarian message from the mouth of Shukadev Goswami, he was not feeling any exhaustion, even though he was fasting because of his imminent death. One can indulge in hearing the mental speculators, but such hearing cannot endure for any length of time. One will be exhausted very soon from hearing such hackneyed ways of thinking, and no one in the world can be satisfied simply by hearing such useless speculations. The message of the Lord, especially from a personality like Shukadev Goswami, can never be tiring, even though one may be exhausted from other causes. In some editions of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the text of the last line of this verse reads, Anyatra kupita dvijat, which means that the king might be overwhelmed by the thought of his imminent death by snake bite. The snake is also twice born, and its anger is compared to the cursing Brahmana boy who was without good intelligence. Maharaj Parikshit was not at all afraid of death, for he was fully encouraged by the message of the Lord. One who is fully absorbed in Achyuta Katha can never be afraid of anything in this world. Translation. O learned Brahmana, because of my drinking the nectar of the message of the infallible personality of Godhead, which is flowing down from the ocean of your speeches, I do not feel any sort of exhaustion due to my fasting. Maharaj, we'd love to hear your comments on this verse.
Yeah, there is difference of opinion about that last line, because sometimes they do present that Krishna was afraid and tried to protect himself, save his life, which would be different than as we understand it. That he wasn't afraid and he didn't make any effort to. But even if a devotee tries to protect his life, shall we say, or defends himself, tries to defend himself, that doesn't mean he's fallen from being a devotee or he's not depending on Krishna. Because devotees are asked to do that by the Lord sometimes. They're asked to perform a certain duty, even though they know that Krishna, if Krishna approves it, then it can happen. If Krishna doesn't approve it, it won't happen. Still, they're enjoined to make the effort. So, it's like demigods, when they're attacked by the demons or they have some fear of the demons, then they remember Krishna more and they pray to him to please protect him. So they feel themselves that that's a sign of their weakness, and they apologize after. They apologize to the Lord. That why is that we remember you only when we're in fear, and when we're not afraid of anything, then we think we're self-independent and we don't remember you. So that is a fear. That's fair to be afraid of that happening. But as in the case where the devotees of Vrindavan were in imminent danger of forest fire destroying them, they called out for Krishna for help. That's not a weakness. That doesn't mean that because they did that, they were attached to their bodies, they're on the material platform, and they lose their status as being top class transcendentalists. No. That's also a part of their pastime. But the devotees do take different opportunities to remember Krishna. Every opportunity. So, and remembering Krishna doesn't just mean doing nothing except with one's mind. One can remember Krishna while doing some other duty at the same time. It's like Krishna told Arjuna, remember me at the same time and fight. Fight and remember me at the same time. And both things are there. So it's like a devotee, let's say he has some very serious illness. Like for example, Prabhupada, in the last stage of his life, he underwent some serious illnesses. So one time It was so serious that he said they should call a doctor. Prabhupada usually didn't put much trust in doctors, but he's so serious that he felt it would be correct to. So he called the doctor, but the whole time he was thinking, if Krishna wants, Krishna can save me, and if Krishna wants, Hare Krishna, Raki Krishna, Hare. Both things are there. So he didn't come down to a lawyer staff platform by calling the doctor or by going to find out if there's something they can do. They can do something to help. That's Krishna's mercy. We shouldn't limit Krishna to only being able to help in certain ways. He can help in many ways. And if he can help by sending someone or allowing someone to do some service, some medical service, that's also fine. That doesn't diminish the devotee. So devotees can go to check with doctors, check with medical. They can call the police when there's danger. They don't have to just. They can do we can use all these things in Krishna's service. And it doesn't mean that one falls down from his platform. Now, he shouldn't give up his own service. That's more important. He doesn't give up his service for something else. Now, the devotee's service is to do something for Krishna. So he has this duty. He doesn't give up that for some reason of his own. But if it's another example is Govinda. Govinda, the servant of Lord Chaitanya. It was his duty to massage the Lord every afternoon, and especially on the afternoon of, he was dancing all day in front of the Jagannath car. So Lord Chaitanya was very fatigued and he needed to take some rest. He wanted to take some rest. So Govinda wanted to massage him, but Lord Chaitanya couldn't turn his body over. He was so exhausted, couldn't turn his body over. He could only stay on one side. So Govinda couldn't massage him like that because he was on the side that needed to be massaged. So he stepped over Lord Chaitanya, which is against all Vaishnava etiquette. Step over another Vaishnava, what to speak of his spiritual master. He wasn't his spiritual master exactly, but he was accepting him as his spiritual master and as the Supreme Lord. So he massaged him. And then he stayed there. So when Lord Chaitanya woke up, he said, Govinda, what are you still doing here? Why don't you go take prasad? He said, I couldn't take prasad. I couldn't go because I would have had to step over you, and I didn't want to step over you. It's improper. He said, well, how'd you get in? How'd you get in there in the first place? He said, oh, that was for your service. I stepped over you for your service, but for my service, for my eating, I didn't want to do that. So he made a distinction. For Krishna's, for the Lord's service, he was willing to do something which was against proper etiquette because it was a higher principle. But for his own pleasure of sorts, he wasn't willing to do it. So we can calculate like that. Why is Parikshit Maharaj, if he did make efforts, because you'll see in the movies, sometimes they show, if he did make efforts to protect himself against the Vayu Takshaka, There's no harm. That wouldn't necessarily mean that he is fallen down from his position of fearlessness, transcendence. If the Lord wanted him to, he can also fight. He can, but we see that the acharyas have pointed out that he could have tried to counter curse or undo the curse. He could have asked the Lord. Prabhupada makes a point other places. He could have asked the Lord. He was so intimately connected. The Lord appeared in his mother's womb just to protect him, to save his life. He was the only hope of the Yadu dynasty, or excuse me, the Kuru dynasty. He could have asked the Lord, please protect me. I have so much service to do as the king, the emperor, but no. So I just thought that point was worth mentioning, that one can do service and it may appear as though he's not depending upon the Lord by doing the service, trying to do it for him, apparently for himself. Actually, he's doing it for Krishna. He's not doing it just to save himself, because he doesn't care about what happens to him. He just wants to do his duty. And if doing his duty means that he should make some effort to protect his body or to use his body in a different way, then he's willing to do that.
Jai. Thank you, Maharaj. Does anybody have any questions or comments? So, in this purport, Prabhupada makes a very good point, specifically pointing out the difference between hearing from this Achyutya Katha, this Katha, this speak dealing with the infallible Lord, infallible transcendental knowledge, versus hearing from mental speculators. And there was a nice part of the sentence that he said. Oh yeah, he says, the message of the Lord, especially from a personality like Shukadeva Goswami, can never be tiring, even though one may be exhausted from other causes. So we may be fried out or tired of other things, but if we go on hearing this Achyutya Katha, this Krishna Katha, it becomes more relishable. And you could hear from so many devotees who pick up the Bhagavad Gita at different times in their life. And it's almost like you flip open the pages and you see a shloka that you never even heard before or never even seen before, although you've seen it before, but it just kind of speaks to you. It jumps at you at a certain time in a different way. So this is the nature of this transcendental knowledge. It's never changing. It's speaking about the absolute reality, whereas these mental speculators are using limited faculties to ascertain the nature of reality. And this reminded me of when I was coming into spiritual life, spiritual ways of thinking. And I was reading a lot of books on different topics. I got an Ishopanishad, and I read that, but I was reading many other things that helped. They did help free me from some conditioning of hang-ups that I had of understanding in life. But eventually, rough patches came, tough times came. And then I said, okay, let me try to read all these books to try to, get some more of that nectar. And I was trying to read all the books, and nothing was working until I finally said, okay, let me just try reading the Bhagavad Gita just for like a week straight, just Prabhupada's books. Like, that's the actual book that really jolted me into thinking of God, thinking of spirituality, let me just try hearing from that book. And just making that one decision, everything completely changed immediately. Because you're hearing directly from the disciplic succession coming from Lord Krishna. So when we hear these teachings and we become fixed in mind and thought and consciousness of having this Krishna Katha, this message coming from Krishna reverberating in our consciousness, then Prabhupada said at the last sentence here, he says, one who is fully absorbed in this Achyutya Katha can never be afraid of anything in this world. So this is very significant. Everybody is fearful of so many things. People are afraid of death, yes, but people are afraid of so many other things which, when you look at it from a higher perspective, are completely silly, actually. We're afraid of people staring at me, looking at me. I'm afraid of me going out in public and looking like a fool, afraid of public speaking. This is actually one of the biggest fears in the world, public speaking. You get up and speak and everybody's staring at you and I have to stalk and say words. It's very, very easy to look like a fool. And then because you're fearful, you try to speak, but because you're afraid and you're not absorbed in the transcendental message, then all of a sudden you're thinking, oh no, I'm messing up. People are looking at me. And then everything starts to roll downhill. You become nervous and anxious. But we could see, devotees who are really just conversant in this transcendental message that Prabhupada gave us. What's the problem? You could speak to anybody of different countries, different age ranges, different sexes, different, everything. Because you find a way to deliver what these people can hear at a certain time. Sometimes people aren't ready to hear this Krishna Katha. Maharaj Parikshit, is a great example. He was in this very trying situation, Krishna's Leela, organizing where the snake bird was going to bite him. So he was ready to fully give up everything and just absorb himself in hearing. In this way, like he said here, he didn't even really care about fasting or what to speak of not sleeping, because he's so absorbed in just hearing this nectarian message coming from Shukadev Goswami. But we, as preachers, need to learn to give the people what they can digest, what they can take. Sometimes people are very ripe and they're very eager to hear about this Achyutya Katha, this transcendental knowledge, and you can disclose more information to them. Starting from the point where Krishna starts with, that you're not your body, and you can build on that from there. And disclosing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and if you surrender to Him and serve Him, you'll become pleased, you'll become satisfied, life will become blissful. But some people aren't so eager to hear or don't have the adhikari to hear. And sometimes they just need to be pointed in the right direction of coming to more sattvic lifestyle so they can actually, change their life and hear. I remember reading in Shyamasundar Prabhu's book, he was talking about the devotees' stay at John Lennon's estate. I don't know where it was, like Tittenhurst or something. Somewhere near London. Anyways, there was a gardener, and Prabhupada would go walking around on the property, and with this gardener, he would talk with him, and he's not telling him all about Krishna or trying to get him to chant Hare Krishna. He was just talking to him about, old antique, like English sports cars. And this could be like, what? Prabhupada's not telling him about Krishna? Or sometimes they'd go on a morning walk and Prabhupada would walk by people. Sometimes he'd walk by passerbys and he'd say, Hare Krishna. Sometimes he'd walk by passerbys and he'd say, good morning. Prabhupada wasn't fanatical. He was expert in seeing where people were at and able to connect with them accordingly. Because if somebody's not at that level and you just tell them, chant Hare Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. I remember hearing a story. It my Guru Maharaj, he said he was on a plane traveling with a devotee, maybe his servant or something, some brahmachari, and they're sitting on the plane, and usually the plane has 3 seats, So there's Maharaj, there's this devotee, and then on the window seat, there's some random person, and the brahmachari was turning to him, and he was saying, "Can you chant Hare Krishna? Hare Krishna, move your lips, Krishna," and just really forcing it. So yeah, it's good for people to hear the holy name, but if we're forcing people in this kind of fanatical way, it can turn people more averse to Krishna. They think, oh, those Hare Krishnas are crazy. I'm never going to do that. So to find a way to deliver what people are able to hear is very nice, and we should reflect on this as preachers and pray to Krishna to use us as an instrument so we can connect with others and inspire them to take Krishna consciousness seriously. Because here, like Prabhupada's mentioning, hearing from these mental speculators, he said, what did he say? He said it can't continue for any amount of time. One can indulge in hearing in the mental speculators, but such hearing cannot endure for any length of time. So everybody's looking for solutions to their problems in life, but they hear something, it brings some kind of relief, but then it's never wholesome, it's never fulfilled all the way. So then they want to hear something else. Well, no, they don't want to, but they have to hear something else. They seek something else. They read this book, they hear from this person, they go here, they go there. Everybody's suffering. Everybody's completely in misery. Everybody's completely lost, and they're dependent upon these books, on the devotees of reaching out to them. So by going out and preaching and giving everybody an opportunity to take to this Krishna consciousness is the highest thing we can actually do. Krishna says this pleases him the most, this devotee who's endeavoring to spread this message to the faithful. Krishna becomes very, very pleased. And we can do this not just only by our direct preaching of distributing books or, doing Harinam, but in all of our activities, everything that we should do, we should mold our life to be a representative of Srila Prabhupada. Because without Srila Prabhupada, where would we be? We'd be completely immersed in lust. We'd be completely lost in our mind. We'd be nowhere. Not only nowhere, we'd be going lower and lower and lower, or higher and then lower and higher and lower, and just stuck in samsara. But Srila Prabhupada, we're indebted to him, and we should try to be representatives of him and mold all of our services, our lifestyle, our thinking, everything in a way that's more pleasing to him, because he brought this message so perfectly, and it's so easy to hear. Whereas Parikshit Maharaj, like I mentioned, was on this really pivotal time of imminent death, and Maharaj was pointing out he could have rectified this in some way, but he chose not to. He chose just to hear. We are also facing imminent death, but we think death is not near. So we don't take things so serious. We think, okay, let me just wake up, let me roll in the temple, let me get through my 16 rounds, I'm reminded of when I spent time in Vrindavan. There's so many devotees here. There's very, very few devotees, relatively speaking, to the city. So there's a lot of service for all the devotees to do here. And sometimes, depending on where you're at, it can be a lot of service to the point where it's like, I don't want to do so much service. I just want, a little bit more time to myself, a little time to rest, or a little time to even read or whatever. Just kind of take it a little bit more easy. But in Vrindavan, there's so many devotees, it's hard to get service. So everything is viewed in such a high esteem. Here we have all this prasadam that's so available all the time. Not even just prasadam when we go downstairs, but garlands and flowers and everything. But being in Vrindavan, when there's thousands of people, thousands of devotees coming every day, if you just get one little flower, from the altar that's been offered to the deities, this prasadam, it's like so much more nectarian because everybody's hankering after it. So what's the difference between being here and there? It's just our consciousness. How eager are we to serve Krishna? There's a great lecture with Srila Prabhupada. He points out the qualification to see Krishna. Because many people don't believe in God. They say, can you show me God? In this lecture, he points out that, if I open the hood of my car and try to check it out and try to fix it, I have no clue what I'm looking at. So I have to take it to a mechanic, somebody who's qualified. So if this is the case for a little machine, a little car, what to speak of not just the creator of the car, not just the creator of that, the creator of the creator of everything. What kind of qualification do we have? We have no qualification. Our only qualification, Prabhupada said, is this lolium, intense greed, intense hankering. Krishna, he says, Yeya tamam prapatyante tams tataiva pashamyaham. He rewards us according to our degree of surrender. So the only question we have to ask ourselves is, do we really want to see Krishna? Do we really want to serve Krishna? Do we really want to surrender to Krishna? Do we really want to realize that we're not our body and realize there's a spiritual world? Because it's available, we just have to push for it. And because we're conditioned, we'll push and then we face our limitations. And it's like hitting a wall. And then you have to push more and go through that wall. Push more and go through that wall until you realize there's no wall. You just keep pushing. You just keep doing service. But what we're holding on to, one part of the material aspect of me, myself, and I, my time, my way of living, my way of thinking versus Krishna's way of thinking. So Krishna is directly purifying us to come to that platform, and it could take us lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes where we're just dragging our foot, and the more that we drag our foot, the more suffering is there, the more misery. We're only causing misery to ourselves only. But the more that we accept this Achyuta Katha and really allow it to enter our ears like Maharaj Parikshit, not just enter our ears, but enter our heart and apply it to our lives, then everything that we're looking for will come to us. So this lolium, this intense greed to serve Krishna, but we might have a little bit of faith in that, but we might not be able to act on it. So Srila Prabhupada, he said, where does faith come from? He says faith comes from associating with the faithful. Faith comes from associating with the faithful. So we should be very wary of our association. Is there people I like to hear from or associate with where it's nice and it's a light mood and friendly, but it might not be really propelling me into Krishna consciousness? Or are there other devotees that are fixed in their service, or maybe they're not fixed, but they're really endeavoring like anything to serve Krishna in a very nice way? So this is our free will. Do we want to serve Krishna or do we not want to serve Krishna? Krishna gives us the option. And if we truly understand the message that Shukadeva Goswami is speaking in the Srimad Bhagavatam, then it's pretty easy to realize that it's in our best interest to willingly become a servant of Lord Sri Krishna. So that's time. Is there any questions or comments or thoughts? Yes, you have the microphone.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to share reflections, and then also today is Vasudev Ghosh's disappearance day, and my god siblings, they write a little newsletter and send it to all of us. And I thought, if it's okay with you, I could read just some of the notes that they wrote.
Yeah, sure.
So just a couple comments first on our discussion or your class. I appreciate Maharaj speaking on, and we could call on the police, we could, ask for help from these different sources, but what I took from that was that we are ultimately taking shelter of Krishna and our service to Krishna. It's not that we're serving those other sources, if I understood that correctly. And then you said a lot of good points. I like how you emphasize this last sentence in the purport. One who is fully absorbed in Achyuta Katha can never be afraid of anything in this world. I think that could also connect with how you were saying when Prabhupada says that if we associate with the faithful, that's how we receive the same faith and greed for Krishna consciousness. So in the same way, I think when we meet those who are fearless in their lives in Krishna consciousness, we also can gain that same feeling. Okay, I'm going to read the newsletter. Okay. Govinda, Madhava, and Vasudev were gopis in Vraj, namely Kalavati, Rasulasa, and Gunatunga, who used to sing the songs composed by Vishaka. This is from Sri Gaura Ganodesh Deepika. And then verse 4 of Gaura Arti is mentions Vasudev Ghosh, and it's Narahari Adi Kori Chamana Dulaya Sanjaya Makunda Basu Ghosh Adi Gaya. Narahari Sankara and other associates of Lord Chaitanya fan him with chamaras, and devotees headed by Sanjaya Pandit, Mukundadat, and Vasu Ghosh sing sweet kirtan. The three brothers Govinda, Madhava, and Vasudev were the 82nd, 83rd, and 84th branches of the tree. Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda used to dance in their kirtan performances. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela. When Vasudev Ghosh described Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda while performing kirtan, even wood and stone would melt upon hearing it. Sri Chaitanya Adi Leela. One more note. Vasudev Ghosh requested Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that, quote, "You deliver all these unhappy conditioned souls, and if you think they are sinful, they cannot be delivered, then transfer all the sins of these people to me. I shall suffer, and you take them away." This is Srila Prabhupada speaking in a class in Bhagavad Gita.
Jai Vasudev Ghosh ki jai. There's one shloka I wanted to read real quick about this point about fear that you're mentioning. Vayam dutya baniveshatasya rishadapetasya viparya yosmatihi tanmayato buddha abhajetam bhaktya kayesham gurudeva tatma. When the living entity is attracted by the material energy that is separate from Krishna, he is overpowered by fear because he is separated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the material energy. His conception of life is reversed. In other words, instead of being the eternal servant of Krishna, he becomes Krishna's competitor. This is called viparya asmritihi. To nullify this mistake, one who is actually learned in advance worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the spiritual master, worshipful deity, and source of life. He thus worships the Lord by the process of unalloyed devotional service. So, this is the cause of fear, turning away from Krishna. But when we turn to Guru, turn to Krishna, where the faith actually comes from, like I mentioned, whatever we have comes from Prabhupada, then we can take up the path of fearlessness. Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Gauradantai ki jai. Vancha Kapatarubhyas Chakripasa Nibheva Chapratitanam Pavane Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah.